I'm actually very excited today to actually have some updates on the bus. I really want to get this thing on the road, and when it was purchased, it was missing a lot of parts. If you haven't been keeping up with the bus, which is a Bluebird Wanderlodge, definitely check out the previous videos. There's a lot of information there that leads us up to where we're at today. I've actually got some parts installed, and I have some parts that have arrived. So slowly but surely, we're getting to that point where we could actually take this thing out on the road and give it a road test. So let's start in the engine bay. So one of the things that actually has arrived is this radiator mount bracket that I had done by Mike, who owns Advanced Transmission Design in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He has one of these, and he has many parts and tons of experience on these Wanderlodges. One thing that was missing when I bought it was a way to even mount a radiator. I actually have a radiator, if you saw one of the previous videos, that I purchased that will fit this bus. I just didn't have a way to mount it. But now I have this bracket here. We'll bolt into these big nut plate, I guess you call them, or nuts that are mounted to the plate. There's two there, and over here is actually a hinge. I will have to slightly modify this and bolt it to this hinge. But the idea is once the radiator is mounted, you could theoretically hinge it out and work on the front of the engine. A lot of guys did that with the Wanderlodges. So now I have a way to mount my radiator. But just as I was working along, getting some things done, I realized two things have died on the bus. Number one was the tachometer, which was working, and it just quit. Number two, I realized, I don't know if it's always been this way, but it wasn't charging the batteries. The alternator was not working. So right here is the actual tachometer drive sending unit. It's just a little 90-degree elbow that runs off of engine there, you can see, and there's some wires that come out of it. I don't think the sensor was dead, but the tachometer itself was dead. And I contacted some people in some of the Wanderlodge forums, and they say it uses an old DC drive style setup, and they were like, good luck, you're not going to find another one of those. I said, you know what, I'm not even going to search for one of those. I'm not even going to waste time. I know that they make tachometers that run off of an alternator. They use a little R terminal that's on the back of the alternator, and then you adjust it accordingly, and there you have a good reading for a tachometer. So gone is the tachometer that connected to that little sending unit down there. So now I have a working tachometer, but only after I replaced the failed alternator. The alternator is a General Motors 22 SI. Many of you have heard of the 10 SI, all kinds of engine swaps and LS swaps, and they use the 10 SI for decades, it seems like. This is a 22 SI, bigger unit. I think it's 160 amps or something like that. A very powerful alternator. I got it installed. You can see it looks familiar. It has a GM style casing. It looks very General Motors-ish. I got it all wired up. Everything's good to go there. I do have a steering gearbox installed as well. It was one of those things that people also said you'll never find one of those. I actually found one on eBay that was new in the box. I don't know if it's ever been installed. You really can't see it, it's hard to see, but you can see two new hoses I had made. You can see there's the pressure hose down below, and up above that is the return hose. All brand new, had them made locally here at a guy that actually does hydraulic lines for us. So it is working, I just don't have a pitman arm. If any of you have an old Wanderlodge sitting out back, a 31-foot 1978 Wanderlodge.
And I bet a lot of them do, just randomly in their backyard.
Yeah, there's lots of those. Actually, there were quite a lot of these made, but I've scanned Marketplace, and I've actually found several old Wanderlodges all over the country that are rotting in people's backyards, and I messaged them, please, can I buy some parts? They're like, buy the whole thing or don't bother me. It's like, well, I don't want to buy your whole Wanderlodge. I just need the pitman arm. They're like, nope, buy it all. So unfortunately, that doesn't work. If any of you would love to sell me the pitman arm that goes with this, I would definitely pay you for it. I went to the Bluebird, the actual official Bluebird parts dealer locally. They literally laughed me out of the office. And there's a story behind that. The story is, Many years ago, Bluebird sold the Wanderlodge name to a different company. And then years later, that company went bankrupt and went under. So now when you go into a Bluebird parts dealer, if you even mention the word Wanderlodge, you just killed the deal. They're like, nope, get out, we're done, we're not talking to you. We never even mess with that name. That was sold long ago. That's not our company anymore. So unfortunately, they can't help me. If any of you out there can, that's great. Let's go ahead and hop into the interior and show you some of the working parts now. So here we are in the interior, and as you can see, Mrs. Wizard has been very busy. There's all kinds of wood shavings and chips and pieces where she's been cleaning out old rotten wood. We're replacing it with all new wood, fixing up these cabinets. There's a couple really small leaks. If you want to see where those leaks are or what's going on with that, you'll have to go to Mrs. Wizard's channel. There's a link in the description. She's doing her own videos with the interior work. That's definitely her wheelhouse, it's not mine. So you definitely want to check that out. It is very interesting to watch. So I'll go ahead and start it. We're going to be seeing two things happen now. We're going to see the tachometer is working again. And we're also going to see that now the battery is charging. The alternator is working. Let's go ahead and check that out. So let's see how fast this thing starts up. Look at that, guys. I'll give it a little blip of throttle and we'll see the tachometer work. And we see our battery is now charging at 14 volts, 13.8 roughly. Beautiful. Happy, happy, happy. Man, this thing starts right up every time. So we definitely have a good, strong engine. If it had issues or compression issues or injection system issues, it would smoke, it wouldn't start smooth. It starts right now, it doesn't smoke. I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that. I just need to get the cooling system taken care of, and as I mentioned in previous videos, it came with no drive shafts. But I have a solution. Let's head on back outside. You're way far down there, Mrs. Wizard.
I know, it's because look at all of this.
This is 3-section drive shaft, which is exactly what was in this bus when it was new. And this is fairly new drive shafts. These 3 sections of the drive shaft are just a little longer than what I actually need, which is good. So the delivery guy brought these to me and they were wrapped in layers and layers and layers of carpet jute padding, like you in a house, the carpet padding. And it took quite a while to get all that off, and it actually filled up half my dumpster. It was really crazy. The UPS guy was so curious. He was like, what are these? They're like the giant, it was this big around each piece. It was so thick and fat with jute padding. We opened them up and showed it to him. It was drive shafts. And he's like, oh, that's uneventful. I was like, sorry. These are actually off of a 2006 International 4300. The U-joints are SPL 100s, which are a little bit larger in diameter on the caps than the actual U-joints that go on this bus, which are Spicer 1550 style U-joints. But here's the thing, the width from one cap to the other is identical. So I can still use this drive shaft. All I have to do is make a little spacer that fits around the cap of the 1550 U-joint. I'm actually going to use the old caps off of these and machine them to fit on the caps of the 1550 U-joint. So 2 sides will fit identical to this drive shaft. The other 2 will fit exactly to this bus. Let's head on over to my lathe that I have. I'll show you what I'm going to do. So here we have the SPL 100 joint. You can see this is one of the caps off of it. I actually took one of these off of one of the other U-joints. Just the cap. So I know that is the correct size for this drive shaft to fit into these yokes. But my bus, unfortunately, uses 1550 style, which are smaller. As you can see, as far as the width of the joint, it fits in. I mean, I have to tap it in pretty good. Here's the comparison. You see how much larger they are than this joint. Now it's easy to say, well, this is such a small joint, why wouldn't you go up to the big joint? What's wrong with it as it is? Because it's exactly what the bus came with when it was new. Well, I don't need to beef up the joints. All I need to do is machine this cap to fit over these, which I've already done one. This one's a little bigger on purpose so I can show you without pressing it on. But as you can see, this is an SPL 100 cap that I've cut and machined down. Watch this, guys. Look at that. Now this one's loose on purpose because I just wanted to show you my idea here. I'm going to machine other ones that are press fit. Once I get one that's tighter and press fit, it'll fit on here. So there you can see that this retaining tab will still hold the center cap in and also the spacer that I made. This will get clamped on and it'll clamp it in tight. And I will have adapted this drive shaft to my bus. Being that it'll be press fit on, there won't be any slack or play or anything going on or misalignment. It'll be the same alignment as original. It'll just now fit into the space of a SPL 100. Here I have one of the old caps. And one of the first things I'm going to do is one thing that mechanics always hate. I'm going to spill the needles all over the floor. Oh no! What do I do now? I got dirt in them and who cares? I'm not going to use them. I'm going to go ahead and get this rubber seal off of here. Yeet! Okay, let me get that cleaned out. Get the grease out of here. So now I have no more bearings. Got the rubber seal out and everything out of there. So let's see if it fits on the 1550 U-joint just as it is. It actually almost does. I can feel it wanting to catch. It almost goes on there, but not quite. So let's go ahead and show you the steps I'm going to use to machine this to fit onto here. So in the shop I actually have a few machines. Like I said, I used to be a machinist, so I know how to use them. I have a Bridgeport mill, one of the old J-head Bridgeports. Then I have this old Leblon Regal. It's probably 1940s or 50s. It's very old. And it's not accurate anymore. You're not going to get tenths on it. But for what we do, we just slightly modify things in the shop. It works perfectly. So let's go ahead and get this little cap chucked up. So I got all three of the jaws equally tightened. I'll go ahead and select my cutoff tool. Spray a little lubricant spray on there as I'm cutting. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on and start cutting. So this is very hard steel, guys. This is bearing level steel, like for bearings and things. So it's very hard. That's why you see a lot of sparks and things going on. No matter how much lubricant you spray, it's going to have a little bit of the sparks going on. That's normal. But so you see we cut the end cap off, which makes it hollow. I don't need it to be making the distance between the caps wider. I need that to stay the same as a 1550, which they are. So now I've got that cleaned up. I'll go ahead and flip it around and cut off the other little end. It didn't take much. I just chamfer the edges and get some of the sharp edges off. Now I'm going to turn it around. So one of the things that I got taught when I was learning to machine, my teacher actually had a plastic little tube that actually parts came in. He was pointing to things. And in a joking way, in a funny way, he left this in the head here, and he bopped me on the head. He said, "Don't ever leave this in here and walk away." So inadvertently, you'll come back, you're not thinking, you'll go turn it on, and that thing can sling in your eye. It can sling up in the shop, it could break the lathe. So I definitely, in this shop, I don't let anyone else use the lathe, but only me. Because slight mistakes, this thing will, if this thing catches your arm, it'll pull it in. So let's go ahead and cut off the other end. So as far as how much am I cutting off, I'm just cutting off just enough, you can see, to cut the end cap off. I know how thick these are, so it's kind of a guesstimate on that. But, and the other end of it was just the little chamfered area where the rubber seal fit. I just wanted to cut that off, is all I did. Let me get that cleaned up real quick. So now I'm just moving it in a little bit so it's not sticking out so far. I'll go ahead and tighten it back down. Now we're going to bore the inside of it to where it fits pretty tight on the 1550 cap. Not so tight that it clamps and changes and distorts it. You don't want to press it on that hard. But you want it snug where it just starts to go on, but it takes a little pressure. And we'll go ahead and bore it out. So this is our boring bar, and it has a cutting insert just like the other two tools that I have uses, but instead of facing this way, it faces towards me cutting, so I can reach on the inside and cut. I'm going to just touch the inside so I know where it's at. And this one's kind of noisy. And just a little bit. Spray some lube in there. And I'm going to put it on power feed and let it do the turning for me. Another thing that one of the mentors I had with machining told me is it's tempting while it's turning and doing its work that the chips get balled up, that you want to grab them by your hand and remove those. You will slice yourself to the bone if you do that. It is very dangerous. You can use pliers maybe and get in there, but I typically don't mess with it too much. Get the chips off. Now we can see the inside of this cap is nicely machined. Nice and smooth inside of there. Let's see where we're at with the cap. Almost. We're getting close. So now I'll get my micrometer and my calipers out and I'll start dialing it in and getting it even closer. But I just wanted to show you the steps involved, how I can make these drive shafts work. Once I get everything to work as far as U-joints are concerned, which, by the way, I only have to modify the very rear U-joint and the very forward U-joint, where they actually connect to the bus. Everything else, all the U-joints in between, I will leave them alone, just like they were stock on the International. Once I get those to bolt up, I'm happy with that. Then I will take measurements and take the drive shaft to a drive shaft shop and have them cut them to length, shorten them, and then I'll be able to bolt everything up. And it will solve my drive shaft problems. Let's head on out back to the bus. One thing I still need to do is make a battery tray. Right now I've been using this little chair and an 8D huge battery, which is what I'm going to use to start this bus. And get that welded in, but I want to make sure I get my pitman arm situation solved first. So now we have a solution to the drive shaft dilemma that will solve that. I've had people email me or contact and want to know if I do modifications or machining work for them. I do not, because of liability reasons. My insurance guy probably won't be very happy if I machine something for you and it breaks and it hurts you. So that's definitely not something I want to get into litigation and stuff about. So we got the tachometer issue solved using an alternator. Who thought? Actually, it's very common on diesels to do that. We got the alternator issue solved. Now it charges the battery. We got a lot of issues with power steering solved except for the pitman arm. I'm crossing my fingers somebody out there can help me. I've got brackets to mount a radiator, and now I have drive shafts that can actually go on this bus and make it move again. Make sure to go in the description below and check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways. She'll show you some of the things that you just saw inside the bus. She'll explain what she's got going on in there. If you're curious what kind of tools we use in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. And also hit the subscribe button for this channel because there's tons of updates on the truck, the bus, all kinds of things going on. Thanks for watching.